Well, see, the title of our sermon is The Stairway to Heaven, so you know what our last worship song will be. Mike, you ready to rock out? All right. One of the themes I want to start talking about today, and it's really carrying through from the previous weeks, is that we get the good blessings of God, not by our work or by grasping like we talked about last time, but by receiving with an open hand. So remember we talked last week about Adam and Eve and the idea of grasping the fruit rather than simply receiving from God all the goodness he had planned for them. And we talked about the difference between the tension of grasping and just the peace of receiving. So I had a good illustration of receiving this week. Some people mentioned the nice suit I'm wearing, and I received this as a gift. So it was funny. Just a week or two ago, I was telling Amy, I feel like I need to upgrade my wardrobe a little bit here. I'd lost a little bit of weight. Some of the clothes weren't fitting. I didn't really have any nice suits. And then we were sitting around a table with Doug and Vicki Poplin, and Doug said, well, he'd lost some weight, and so he had some suits I could try on. And so he brought in these 4 suits. Well, 2 of them are coats, and they're all Brooks Brothers. I mean, these are nice suits. You don't get these at Walmart. And this was just this beautiful gift of receiving, right? I didn't do anything to earn it or deserve it. That's, I think, just a small illustration of what God does for us. And it was weird. This morning, I hadn't worn the suit before this morning. I come in and, there's something in the pocket here that's been left from Doug and Vicki. And so I thought, I hadn't really read this before. So since it's part of the sermon illustration, though, maybe I should go ahead and read this. Appears to be a note from Vicki. Dear Doug, I'm sorry for the names I called you last night when I was drunk. I don't think I will read that. No, we're going to look at this theme and how God traces the beauty of his grace. That word grace simply means unmerited gift. That's the heart of it. And receiving that, God bringing that back again and again amongst all of our failures. We're going to begin by looking at the Tower of Babel in Genesis chapter 11. So I'm going to encourage you to turn there. And so you'll see the idea of the stairway to heaven come into play. We're not going to focus just on one passage, though. Very often, that's usually what we do. We focus on one passage and we, what's called exegete that. We try to bring out the meaning. And this week, we're going to do that to a degree, but we're going to look at 4 passages and how they, from different parts of the Bible, written in very different circumstances, and how they tie this beautiful theme together. And I like what J.I. Packer, some of you know him from the book Knowing God, and he was talking in one of his books, or the foreword to a book, about the incredible diversity of the Bible. I mean, just think about it. This book was written over a period of like 1,500 years, 1,500 years. Think what our country was like. Well, we didn't have a country. Think of what the land here was like with the Native American tribes. Or think about Europe 1,500 years ago and how things have changed, how thoughts have changed. And then he talks about how it's written by all these different authors. And then he asks this question: why do we bind up this diverse collection of books between the same two covers, call it the Holy Bible, and treat it as if it's one book? One justification for doing this, one of many, is that the collection as a whole proves to have an organic coherence that is simply stunning. Oh man, that's an understatement. Books written centuries apart seem to have been designed for the express purpose of supplementing and illuminating each other. And there is throughout one leading character, God the Creator, one historical perspective, world redemption, and one focal figure, Jesus, and one solid body of harmonious teaching about God and godliness. Truly, the inner unity of the Bible is miraculous, a sign and a wonder, challenging the belief of our skeptical age. Let me tell you, I studied a good deal of philosophy in graduate school, and after that as well, reading books, and I've read most of the atheists who are very popular these days. And there are lots of times where you say, oh, that's a good argument, Other times, no, that's a stupid argument. But there are times in the Christian walk where you feel, is this really true? And one of the things that's helped me over the many decades is just that idea that there's nowhere else to go, because here are these words of eternal life. There's a power and a richness to them that I could never conceive of being simply a human invention. So we're going to see that today, hopefully, as we look at the two towers. And the first one is going to be here in Genesis chapter 11, and a bit of a background here. So last time we talked about Genesis 3, and then we talked about how sin led to this downward spiral, where even Noah, which looked like a new beginning, would he be the Messiah, the promised seed of the woman? But no, he fails as well. And then you have this description of human violence, human injustice, human evil, and culminating then in this figure of the city of Babylon. Now, Babylon is going to be the symbol, writ large over the Bible, of human evil organized against God. So humans are not entirely evil, obviously. We're still made in God's image. But human evil, when it's at its full and it's organized in resistance to God, is going to be symbolized by Babel. And so you come then in chapter 11 to the Tower of Babel. And if you haven't turned there, go ahead and do that. And you kind of know the story here. Let me show you a slide just to kind of get our bearings, because it's going to talk about Shinar, which is an ancient variation of the spelling for Sumer, which is going to be the part of Mesopotamia. You'll see that on the map up there. That part that's closest to the Gulf there on the bottom right of your screen. That part was originally called Sumer, so Shinar is a variation of that. It's more usually known as Babylon. The area as a whole is known as Mesopotamia. So Shinar basically has the idea of Babylon, as you'll see in the end of the story. And it says this: Now the whole world had one language and a common speech, and as people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly. And they used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. And they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves, and so we will not be scattered over the face of the whole earth. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. And the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. And that's why it's called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. So Babel, in their language, means the gate of God. That L ending means God, so usually you see that in a word. It has God in there. There is a Hebrew word, mabel, which means confusion. And so there's a play on words. They called it the gate of God, but we're calling it here, God's calling it simply confusion. So what's going on here? What's God's problem with the little building project, right? Well, let's get our bearings about what this tower is. We have examples of towers from the land of Shinar or Mesopotamia. There are about 30 to 32 that exist and that are still exist to some degree. I mean, just the ruins of them, of course. And we have a few more that are referenced in literature that we don't know where they were. So there are at least 30 to 40 of these towers in ancient Babylon. And so we know, because of archaeological evidence and from the descriptions, what these towers were like. They were called a ziggurat. And it just simply means a high place, basically. Now, what's interesting, although these are often compared to the pyramids of Egypt, what's interesting is that these are solid. So there's no inner place. This is filled in with earth. The actual temple is going to be at the bottom. So this whole thing was not a temple. The temple was going to be at the bottom. There's no interior space. There's a shrine at the top where the god would be conceived as coming down from the heavens, from the sky, to this place. And then the structure, in many ways, it was built to support this massive structure. Archaeologists tell us that the steps were too large for humans to traverse comfortably, so it's more like they were made for the gods. So it wasn't for the people to go up, but it was for the God to come down. So when it says reaches to the heaven, it's not so much that they were trying to make it, 40,000 feet tall, but the idea is that they were going to bring in heaven to their place, bring in the gods and the blessings of the gods to their place. It was human desire and work and initiative in order to secure the blessings of heaven, as they understood that. So that's what's going on there. And there, we know some of the names of these temples kind of illustrate this. The temple, the foundation of heaven and earth. Temple of the stairway to pure heaven. Temple of the god Dadia. Temple of the foundation of heaven and earth. Temple which links heaven and earth. These are some of the names. Now, there is one great example left, archaeologically speaking. This is a ziggurat at Ur from about 2100 BC. So around the same time period, probably the Tower of Babel was a little bit predating this, but it's in the same area. And this was discovered by Westerners, at least, in the late 1800s. They kind of redid the lower level. They did not get to the top level. But you'll notice the giant stairway there. And if you're looking at that from the bottom, it's even more impressive. So that's what this tower was like. And what's the problem? Well, the problem wasn't the building itself. The problem was their motive in doing this and their opposition to God. God had said to mankind at the end of chapter 10, go and fill the earth. But instead they said, no, we'll settle in one place. So it's marked in defiance of God. But it's also this false security so that we won't be scattered, even though God said, scatter yourselves around the earth. And a false significance, so that we may make a name for ourselves. And many people have felt that if you could sum up all of human desires and needs under two broad categories, it would be something like this: significance and security. We want significance. It seems to be part of our God-given nature, but it's so easily perverted. We want to be special and known as special. And we want security. We want the things that we have that are good not to be threatened and taken away easily. We desire these things. But the problem is not the desire necessarily, but do you achieve that like Adam and Eve through your own efforts, through grasping, through your own wisdom and power, or by receiving? Now that's the thought we'll come back to. So just kind of put it in your mind. Am I seeking security and significance in different ways? With God, receiving them from Him, or through my own works and wisdom? So God spoils the building project. And God says, okay, look, basically, I'm paraphrasing here what I think is the intended purpose of this, of what God says. If their only unity is sin, then ultimately that unity itself will become a curse. There will be no limit to what sinful human society does in their sinfulness, in their injustice, in their violence. And so God confuses the language. He rips up the building permit because He has something better in mind. Right in the next chapter, chapter 12, we won't look here because we got quite a few others to look at. Right after this, you have the story beginning of Abram and Sarah. And the first thing God does in this story, before it says anything about Abram, doesn't describe his righteousness or anything, it says God appeared to him and says, Abram, I am going to bless you, and I'm going to bless all the world through you, and I'm going to make a name. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I'm going to give you that security. I'm going to make your descendants like the stars in the sky. I'm going to give them this land. And I will be with you, and I will be your God. I will make your name great. That need for significance, I will take care of. So we're seeing here the opposition, right? The flow of the story is crucial. After God's response is mercy because He frustrates what would actually be a curse to them, the tower builders. But then God, right after this, shows that He is preparing another way, a way prepared entirely by grace. Now, Abram dwelled in the land and he walked with God. He had a son, Isaac. and Rebekah. And then Isaac and Rebekah had 2 sons, Jacob and Esau. And Jacob was the older one, right? So in that world, he had all the rights. He had all the privileges. He had all the goodies. And Esau was the one who defrauded his brother twice out of those blessings. Once, it was by manipulating his brother's desires. He sold him the birthright for basically a pot of stew. And the other, he tricked his own father. He fooled his own father into thinking that he, Jacob, was Esau, so that his father would give him a blessing. Jacob is a man who is seeking the blessing. It's a good blessing. The blessing of God promised to Abraham and his descendants. But he's doing it through his own wisdom, his own foolishness and deception. And yet in the midst of this, God gives him this beautiful act of mercy. So this story is occurring in Genesis, we'll go ahead and turn there if you want, 28, Genesis 28. In verse 10, this is after he has deceived his father and his brother, or has manipulated his brother. And his brother, Esau, basically says this, okay, Dad's old, and as soon as he dies, you're dead too, because I'm going to take care of you. So he's actually on the run. He's got his father's blessing, yeah, but he's on the run. He's got a backpack, and he has to go over towards the land that they had come from. And it says, Jacob left Beersheba, which is in the south part of Israel, and he set out for Haran. And when he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to the heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And there above it stood the Lord. And he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the east and to the west, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you. I am with you, and I will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised. And when Jacob woke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I wasn't aware of it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Harkening back to that Babel language, right? Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil upon it. And he called the place Bethel, though the place used to be called Luz. What's Bethel mean? It means the house of God. So he's recognizing that God is here. Now, what's going on here? What's happening? Well, if we're reading the flow of the story, I think what's happening is pretty clear. Jacob has this dream. It's all by grace. There is nothing in the story so far that Jacob has done right. And yet, God appears to him in this dream, says, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to be with you. And I'm going to give you this land. And I will stay with you and protect you in all your ways. And he has this dream, and it's this stairway. And I can't help but think if it's a large stairway, probably the only thing around there that people would associate with that would be something like a ziggurat. It's not like they had a lot of stairways in their ancient culture. But instead of human beings building this stairway, no, God initiates this, right? And the angels of God are ascending and descending. What's that mean? It simply means that the way between heaven and earth has now been opened. And angels of God are able to come and go back and forth. Now, let's be clear here. This wasn't that they couldn't do that before necessarily, but he's showing that now this is how heaven and earth are to be linked. This is how heaven will come to earth. And there at the top is God himself. What a beautiful picture God gives him here. It's a stairway reaching to the heavens, but it's not built by man. It's simply spoken into by God in his promise and in his mercy. You remember the theme we talked about last week, how there's this backdrop of human failure, but amongst that there's this scarlet thread woven in again and again. Do you see it? Oh, do you see it? That's the second passage we're going to look at, I said that there were 4. The next one is actually in your New Testament. So this is going to be written about 1,500 years later. And it's a story in John chapter 1. John chapter 1. And when you start reading this, you're not going to get the connection between Jacob and his dream unless you remember that Jacob was also called Israel, right? So God changed his name. And anyway, let's just start reading it in verse 43 of John 1. The next day, Jesus decided to leave Galilee. And finding Philip, he said to him, "Follow me." Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. And Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and the one whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." We found the Messiah. It's this guy Jesus. He's from Nazareth. And apparently Nathanael has some geographic snobbery going on. He says, "Nazareth? Can anything good come from there?" And sometimes the best answer you can give is, "Come and see." That's what Philip says. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said of him, "Here truly is an Israelite." So again, Jacob is Israelite, "in whom is no deceit." Now, that's interesting too, because remember, Jacob was known for his deceit. In fact, his name means he grasped at the leg, which is a proverb for meaning he was deceitful. Here is a true Israelite, a true Jacobite, but in this one there is no deceit. And Nathanael says, "How do you know me?" And Jesus answered, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." Then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Now that seems like a little bit of an overreaction, right? I saw you under the fig tree. You are the Son of God. What's happening? Well, we're not told exactly. Reading between the lines, we do know that fig trees and trees like this were often a place where people would go for prayer and contemplation. So I don't know that this is the case, but I think probably Nathanael was in prayer or meditation, pouring out his heart to God, and there was a trueness. There was a genuine spirit towards God that Jesus was referring to. And when Nathanael saw that Jesus understood that, he's like, this is not a mere man. In any case, Jesus says, "You believe because I said I saw you under the fig tree. You ain't seen nothing yet." That's in the Greek, by the way. Another 70s rock song. Bachman turned over. Oh, no, we won't go there. "You will see greater things than that." And then he added, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man himself." So we see this connection here. The true Israelite, Nathanael, is going to see heaven open and the angels ascending and descending just like Jacob had done. But here, notice how Jesus uses this hyperlink between the Old Testament and New. He's not just quoting Scripture. He's saying, I am the living fulfillment, the embodiment of what that stairway was. I am the way that men and women will come to God. I am the one who is the link between heaven and earth. I am the gate to the sheep pen, as he puts it later in the Gospel of John. As he puts it in John 10, I am the way and the truth and the life. And no one comes to the Father except through me. This is how Jesus uses this. Well, I love this. You see this beautiful scarlet thread running from Babylon's sin. And yet God, in the midst of that, gives this promise to Jacob that there will be yet by God a way open between heaven and earth. And then Jesus comes and says, this is the fulfillment of that. Now, what's interesting, though, is that this is, I put it here, the initial fulfillment, because there's one more to come, and we've quoted this verse a few times lately. But this is in Revelation 21, and this is the last passage we'll look to. When John sees the vision of the end times, this final state, he says, I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem. The new Jerusalem, so God's city as opposed to Babylon. When I saw the holy city, I saw it come down from heaven, from God. It came down from heaven. And I heard a voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them." You know what this is? This is the complete fulfillment. God now dwells with his people. And so you see kind of the progression here. God comes down to scatter human pretension and pride, trying to manipulate God, receive the blessings by their own power and effort. The angels descending upon the stairway, and then descending upon Jesus, and then God comes down to dwell. This is the beautiful thread of God's grace that runs through the pages from Genesis to Revelation. We have a good God, don't we? What do we do with this? Well, I don't know. I'm leaving now. No, I'm just kidding. Let's talk about how we can apply this to our own life. There's a couple things. I think one thing is just, I don't know, it helps me to see in my mind the beauty and the glory and the power of this word. When I see that, it just warms my heart. And when I see what God is doing, that he is making the way open, but it's not by human effort, it just warms my heart towards him. So I pray that that happens with us. But the other thing kind of is in the form of this question. It's this: what stairway are you climbing? Are you like the Babel builders, using your own wisdom and power to achieve your desires and your significance and your security? Now, to some degree, that can happen to us in our relationship to salvation. We may feel like we have to measure up and be good enough for salvation. We feel like we have to get saved by our good works and by keeping the law, as many people thought in John's day, or doing enough good works as many people might feel today. The whole tenor of the Bible, every page of this wrestles with the notion that's not the way. The way is always by grace. So it's not about being good enough. It never is. We're not good enough. And if you grow closer to God, you're going to see more and more that you're not good enough. But maybe we've already made that decision, and the question comes to us like this. All right, you know you're saved by grace. How are you trying to achieve the good things that you desire in life? You might be young, you might be in high school, you might be old, like, Keith over there or something. Wherever you are, do you have a picture of what you want your life to be? Your significance? What your life is about? What you want people to think of you? Your security? Of how much you need to be secure? What job promotion you need? What grade advancement you need? Are we trying to build, or are we willing to simply receive? I don't know where that hits you. I'm reminded of the words we quoted last week from Proverbs 3. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. I don't know where that hits you. I have to think through where it hits me as well. Where are the areas of my life where I'm feeling anxiety because I'm trying to achieve good goals, God goals even, but I'm trying to achieve it through my own wisdom and strength, and I'm not sure I'm good enough or I'm not smart enough. I'm not sure what the circumstances will hold. Here's the deal. It doesn't matter what the circumstances hold if I'm held by God, right? If his hands are open to me and my hands are open to him, then I can trust him. Like he said to Jacob, I will not leave you. And again, you hear the echo of that when Jesus in Matthew 28, I will never leave you or forsake you. That's God's promise to you and to I. There is no better illustration I could give of what it means to receive instead of work than the table right here before us. None of us did anything to receive this grace of God, which ensures our ultimate salvation. It's all a gift. There's a song I heard this week.